Welcome back to the Kraken Power Podcast. We're your hosts, Yoshko and Brandon, and in today's episode, we're talking about the 3 metrics that actually predict success and why 99% of people are tracking the wrong things. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Kraken Power Podcast.
Although we do track body weight, and we also look at BMI as a metric as well, and we also track body fat percentage at our gym and like tons of other metrics when it comes to like your actual body composition. The thing is, they're not that important when it comes to seeing results. Like if you're going to track something, it's better to track other things. We're going to be talking about that in today's episode.
We have some clients at Kraken who will come to us, and what they'll say to us is, I grew up tracking my body weight throughout, me going through dance, or I have some kind of eating disorder because they're so hyper-focused on what the scale was always saying. And so in today's episode, what we hope to give you is some other metrics that you can obsess over, but in a healthy way that will improve you and not make your results so focused on how much you weigh, because there's so much more to what the number is on the scale in regards to your own health and progress in life.
So let's say you're weighing yourself every single day. You step on the scale and you're like 152 pounds. All that's telling you is how hard gravity is pulling you down towards the earth. That's about it. It's like I weigh 152 pounds and then what, right? So there has to be other metrics that you have to track for you to be able to actually start seeing the results that you want to do, whether it's gaining weight or losing weight, building muscle or anything like that.
Because what I think you're trying to say is there's multiple types of bodies, for instance. So you could be 152 pounds and I could be 152 pounds, and we could have vastly different body compositions, and we could have vastly different blood profiles. We could have vastly different health markers. So with all of those markers being out there, it becomes so disorienting to be like, which ones do we track to give us the biggest return on investment for our health and our results?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at Kraken, we actually have it's kind of like a DEXA scan, but not really. It's like the cheaper version of a DEXA scan, but it is like a very expensive scanner. It was like over $10,000 that we use to track our clients' progress. It gives us body fat percentage and a very accurate body fat percentage. When I did the DEXA scan and I came back and did an R scan, it was off by 0.2%. So it's very close. And it does an excellent job of just being able to track like tons of other metrics as well. And so, yes, we are big fans of tracking all that stuff, but there's better things that you should track in order for you to actually start seeing the result that you want. So the first metric that we highly recommend tracking, and the one that we talk about all the time, is your sleep. So we've talked about this in so many podcasts, and the thing is, we keep bringing it up over and over again. But the one thing that we don't really we do talk about it still, but actually tracking your sleep. So we use Oura rings to track not just how much sleep we're getting, but also the quality of sleep. When you sleep well, you're able to make such better decisions. Your quality of life goes up. So it's such a important thing to track and try to improve, because at the end of the day, whatever you're tracking, it's just something that you're using. You're using that data to try to improve whatever you're tracking. So for us, it's sleep is huge, and that's the first metric that you should be tracking.
And when you're tracking sleep, I think you should take a subjective measurement of how you feel, and then take a look at your data to see if it's trending in the right way. So for your example, if you're saying, hey, I have a lot of important business decisions I need to make the next day, how crisp is my mind when I'm making those decisions? How am I able to pivot when something goes wrong? How am I able to apply that mental fortitude and concentration to the task at hand after a certain nights of sleep? And maybe that could be a 83 score on your Oura ring versus a 70. How does that make a difference? And then that can apply to how you are performing in the gym or your family life.
Well, there's one thing. So, for this podcast, whenever we have to do this, we do this podcast, and the day before, I have to make sure that I go to bed on time, that my morning routine's dialed in and everything, because I want to feel as optimally as possible so that I don't mess up on the podcast, and so that we can actually have usable footage to post, right? Because it is a huge, you guys don't see the behind the scenes of this. We mess up often, and also there's been days where we film an entire podcast and we don't even use it because we like didn't have the audio right or something, right? And we want to make sure that we're fully dialed in for this so that we can have like a really we can have a really high quality podcast for you guys. But yeah, then there's also the fact, like, you know, you have kids, right? Or you have a kid right now. You've gone through nights where you didn't sleep well, right?
I've had a few,
Yeah.
to say the least.
And so the thing is, like, if you have kids, it's already like young kids, it's already like pretty stressful. You know, you have to wake up in the middle of the night with them and be there for them and feed them and all of that stuff. And when you don't get enough sleep, you'll notice that like you're more agitated the next day, and then that's gonna affect your relationship, you know, and it just like goes down the line. So that's why sleep is so important, and like tracking the sleep is just it's like, if you're not going to track anything, if you're just going to track one thing, just let it be sleep, you know?
And your sleep quality, duration, your stats essentially for your sleep will bleed into your results in the gym, your fitness, and everything as well. So for instance, we have a lot of clients at Kraken who are often, you know, doing the right things nutritionally, doing the right things in the gym, but they aren't quite hitting that next level until they actually focus on their sleep because they're not recovering. You'd see them go through their full exercise plan and be like, hey, why aren't you losing weight? And as soon as they go from like 4 hours to like 8 of good quality sleep, the scale just tips off without even us having to really, you know, focus on that one metric.
Yeah, for sure. It is definitely the most overlooked thing when it comes to fitness. Like, it's definitely getting more popular now, but the thing is, it's still not as big as it should be.
And so that's why we have to mention it in every podcast.
Yes. And so just some practical ways for you to start tracking your sleep. So, you know, there's Fitbits, there's yeah, Brandon has one.
I'm all
Oh, he has a Fitbit and he has an Oura Ring. But yeah, there's also your Apple Watch. Obviously, the battery life isn't that great, but yeah, if you could track your sleep overnight using any kind of fitness tracker, it's going to be better than not having one. But yeah, I really like the Oura Ring because there is no screen. So yeah, that's what we recommend. But for metric number 2, the other thing that you should be tracking is non-exercise movement. So what we mean by this is basically tracking your steps. And the reason why is as soon as you have one of these trackers, you're going to be tracking your steps. But the reason why we say tracking non-exercise movement is because there are some trackers that don't actually track steps. So like, for example, the Oura Ring, I don't think it actually does track steps. I think they do convert it into steps, but the Whoop Band doesn't actually track steps. It actually tracks strain. So strain is just like how much strain you have throughout the day. You know, is like how much exercise you had, how many walks you went on, or whatever it is, right? Like just general strain throughout the entire day. And I really like that idea of like not tracking specifically steps, but just tracking like an overall amount of movement that you had, you know? And I do really wish that Oura Ring would just track like just general movement, not steps, you know? Like just give me a random number, you know?
Well, the neat thing is they have just your overall stress throughout the day as well.
Yeah.
So that would be something that's like non-exercise related, but it is somewhat influenced by how much activity that you have throughout the day.
Yeah. The only thing is, I track the stress, and like there's been times where I've been sitting all day, and like it still tracks my stress. So like when I'm like in a meeting, and I'm like super stressed out.
That's true.
But yeah, like just non-exercise movement is so ideal to track because it's such an easy way to start seeing better results, like in terms of weight loss, but also just like your general mood. Because the more you move throughout the day, right? Like healthy movement, obviously, if you're like going to be like exercising for 3 hours straight, doing like deadlifts or something, you're going to be just destroyed. But if you're just like generally moving throughout the day, the entire day, you're going to feel a lot better than if you were just sitting around on the computer or watching TV or something.
What's funny, you ever see those comparisons where they compare people who have really high NEAT, so the non-exercise planned exercise, where they're like fidgeters, and those are typically the people who actually are much more skinnier or leaner in nature because they're just doing these small little micro movements throughout the day, as opposed to when you're just sitting there and you're just very sessile when you're doing any kind of like meeting and such. So that's why I like to relate my leanness to like my fidgety ADHD.
But yeah, you know, that's why I really do like the Oura Ring and all these fitness trackers, because you can track so many things. You know, we talked about sleep, we talked about strain. You can also track HRV, your heart rate. you're stressed. Like there's so many things that you can track on these watches and on these Aura rings and stuff. It's so useful to have. And when you're only tracking something like, for example, the scale, like whatever your body weight is, then it's like looking at one pixel out of like an entire 4K movie, you know? You want to be able to look at the whole picture, not just one pixel. So that's why I highly recommend wearing some sort of fitness tracker.
Now, the third metric that we recommend that most people track in order to get really good success in their health and fitness journey is protein consistency. And so what we mean by that is making sure that you're getting an adequate amount of protein volume in each and every day. And you can do this in numerous amounts of ways. You don't have to weigh your food out like a bodybuilder. You can, however, use an app like MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, and make sure you get, 1 gram per pound body weight every single day. Or you can do other methods like making sure you're eating 5 to 6 fifths of protein every single day, or using, eating off a list where you're prioritizing a certain amount of your plate towards proteins. Mm-hmm. But as long as you have an adequate amount and an adequate volume, you're going to be on the right side of things more than less.
Mm-hmm. It's not even about tracking it. It's just about like choosing a consistent amount of protein for you to eat and just making sure that you add protein to every single one of your meals. Every single, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, always just trying to eat as much protein as you can. Like actively thinking about how much protein is on this plate.
Yeah, I think a good rule of thumb is to make sure that you ask yourself, if you're hungry, would I want to eat protein? Because then you're actually hungry. That's stolen from Tanner Shuck. Do you know Tanner Shuck on Instagram?
Yeah, I know Tanner Shuck.
Yeah. He's funny. Like, if you're actually hungry, you're gonna actually crave something that's nutritious, that's gonna have protein, sustenance, vitamins, minerals to it. And if you don't feel like, I don't really want to eat a steak or anything right now, you're just going through that kind of hedonic hunger, right? Or if you do want to have a meal, make sure you are adding something that's like an actual sustainable amount of protein, like meat product, eggs, fish, something along those lines. Mm-hmm.
What we're saying in this entire podcast is like, you don't need to track your body weight. Essentially, like we're saying, you don't even need to track it at all. If you're tracking all of these other things, you don't need to track it at all. And I guarantee that you'll be healthy, And so the implementation system for you to start doing this immediately is get a freaking Oura ring, get a Whoop band, get a Fitbit, get something to be able to track those kind of metrics, because those are going to be way more important than just tracking the weight on the scale, And and then you could just start seeing like how much you're improving. Because like I can tell you right now that the thing that improved my life the most was getting an Oura ring.
Yeah, and just tracking to any matter, right? It's like no progress is really made unless it's actually tracked. And the nice thing about getting a fitness app or a fitness device is it does it for you.
Yeah, you just have to put it on.
You just have to put it on. So it kind of holds you accountable, but also it takes your data for you rather than like the old school method. Remember when we used to go back and you'd like write things in like notebooks and such? Mm-hmm. You don't have to do that anymore. You have a fitness device.
Most people aren't able to break through plateaus because they're just simply not tracking the right things. And most people quit right before a breakthrough because they're just watching the wrong scoreboard. It's like leaving a basketball game thinking you lost when you were actually up by 20 points. And that's why it's so important for you to start tracking the right things and just like forget the scale, because the scale is a liar. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're tracking these other things and you know that you're getting healthier, you're going to start seeing results. Like it's guaranteed 100%. So start tracking the right things. And yeah, hopefully you guys like that episode. If you have any questions about tracking, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll see you in the next one.